Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's the hump day. You made it. Welcome back to Rittermere. I can't get enough. Can you? I honestly can't get enough. Good morning, everybody. Karen, good to see you in Black Forest, Colorado. Robin, are you serious? Is it snowing in Wisconsin? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to force spring here with this. It's not making the distance, is it? It's not making that leap to you out there. Well, I'm sure that it's the last snow of the winter, don't you think? It's got to be because it's not winter. Surely it's the first snow of the spring. Oh man, Cindy, good to see you. Rainy northern Illinois. Oh, it's not a good forecast out there. Kirsten, happy Wednesday from muddy and sunny Vermont. All right, we're not sunny. We are muddy. We're on the chilly side still. Linda, is it sunny where you are in Mass? That is great. Good to see you. April, good to see you. Mom, good to see you. Heidi, good evening from Ostend in Bruges. Brucha, good to see you. Doreen, hello. All is wonderful. All is fine. All is at least fine. That's good enough these days. Let me get this cord out of the way before something really bad happens. Something bad's going to happen. I'm going to leave the cord. All right. So, oh, Joan, good to see you. Good afternoon. I just hopped out of the shower. Such a mess today. You know what I was doing? I was trying to get some stuff ready. There's a bunch of things that I'm attempting to do in a short time because I'm headed to the Cape this weekend to teach Amish toothbrush, not rug hooking, just to change Amish toothbrush. Sometimes I feel like just ragging it with like literally ragged out and ripped bed sheets and things like that I've been dyeing like crazy. So I'm looking forward to that. But in the meantime, I'm realizing that Easter is creeping up on us, hopping up on us quickly. And I'm going to try to put out a few designs in color this afternoon. Oh, and I forgot to bring it upstairs to show you. I finished the Cottontail Lane for myself. I was working on it in class the other night when I did the live class. And I finished it off. And it is so cute. It's such a cute pattern. I want to be sure that you're aware that that's available as just a pattern and not the class, or just the kit and not the class, because that's the one that came with all of those dyed pantyhose, Grenfell style. And I really love the dyed pantyhose. I have a massive amount of pastel colored pantyhose, and hopefully in the next couple days too, I'll do a short video on dyeing with those PAAS, P-A-A-S tablets, right, that are coming out for Easter. But you don't have to buy PAAS. You can go to the dollar store because they've got them there too. At least ours does, for $1. And then you can buy a whole bunch of them. Those tablets are so powerful and they make such great colors. Of course, with the tablets, it's harder to mix colors, right? Unlike with food coloring, where you can do a drop of this, a drop of that. And somebody, Tara, I think it might have been you, I'm not sure if you're on yet, posted a great sort of recipe on our Facebook page, which is Rug Cooking and Punch Needle Club, about measures for recipes for those regular kitchen, food dyes, food coloring, totally non-toxic, putting them together in droplets to form other colors. Super helpful. A little bit of science lab stuff there, but really helpful. It's easier to do that with the drops than it is, of course, with the tablets. But you can break the tablets up, of course, getting into monkey business there. But it's a lot of fun. We'll talk about that later because Easter is hopping up for shoresies. Sue's, good to see you in cold Kansas, but I like the sunflower. Dave, great to see you. Windy and cold in Toronto. Past Mary Poppins and the Wicked Witch on the way. Up right past the window, right? Both of them. That would make a funny rug, those two together. There's a whole bunch of people who have participated in the atmosphere, right? Been up there in the sky doing their things. That would be a funny rug, wouldn't it? Now that could work out great as a Rittermere pattern when I think about it. Those amoeba type shapes, right? With like a different character in each one. All kinds of copyright issues, but right? We don't talk about it, and we don't write to Disney and show them something that we made that's hanging over the couch. Cat's Gallery, great to see you. Nancy, great to see you. Is it warming up there in southern Nevada? Oh, I'm happy to hear that. Barbara, great to see you in Toronto. Another Canada episode. Just so you know, there are now playlists on the Ribbon Candy Hooking channel. One of the playlists that was added last night was all Canada, which is a good one because now there's over 400 videos, and I've got to get back to doing those shorter videos because those are the videos that help me with like YouTube paying. Coffee Time, not at all, but the short ones are the ones that people are watching in other places. The predatory watchers that want a video that's 2 minutes long, that's the equivalent of a PhD, that they then go and do their own craft business with, which is fine. I can also do that. It pays the bills. So I'm going to be putting out a lot more of those. But for the moment, we are in the process of categorizing all of the 400 and some odd videos by subject. And Canada is one of them. So of course, Canada will include what we've been talking about, the Rittermere patterns, the Grenfell patterns, Lillian Burke, Chetty Camp, Emily Carr. There were a bunch of episodes that really centered around Canadian culture. So those are all in that playlist. There was something like 40 videos that fit that criteria just of being, Canadian themed. So I thought, that's very cool, isn't it? Oh, and we also did, I forgot about the one on the lost rugs. That was not the lost rugs, but those lost patterns. Remember that book? I forget what it was called. By the woman who founded the North American Hooked Rug Museum, right? That is in Canada. What was that thing called? It was the Garrett Bluenose patterns, right? It was a story of them having sold, the building, and then some patterns being found later in the basement. And you remember it was a bit of a soap opera, that episode. It was a multi. But yeah, that should be in there too. Sonia, great to see you in Francisville, Iowa. Or Louisiana. That's an L, isn't it? Great to see you. Happy that you're there. I'm such a ding dong. Lisa, great to see you. Chilly and overcast there too. Oh, the wind is blowing. That is a great emoji. And great to see you. Happy Wednesday. So yeah, I'm working on a couple of things to get out in time for Easter. And tonight, just so you know, if you are a Patreon supporter, Patreon supports me, supports Ribbon Candy Hooking as a channel, right? Because this is a big endeavor doing this multiple times a week. And so for Patreon members, I'm going to put out an email at 6 p.m. tonight with a link that is a private link. I'm going to first offer, I uncovered, I have a lot of patterns. And I thought I wanted them all, and I do want them all, but there's no reason for me to keep them all. I can't justify keeping them all. And I do want to set up a little museum, and I do want to do all that, and I want to save like things that are the most, if I'm not going for the prettiest or even the rarest, but the most sort of significant things. Like I'm holding on to some of the McGown teaching workshop or convention pattern designs and some of the Christmas designs, because McGown put out a bunch of Christmas designs yearly. But I do have a ton of patterns, and I just organized, I think, 55 or 56 to put up for sale. And I will first send an email tonight to Patreon supporters, so you get first whack at those patterns. I don't want to get you in a tailspin or anything like that. There are a lot of $10 patterns in there that are very pretty, smaller ones, but there are some super rare ones too, like super, super rare ones. And I just feel like at this point, if I'm not going to actually do them, and if they don't have immediate significance to the rug hooking timeline as far as being associated with like the yearly Christmas patterns, and some of those I am selling too. I'm only keeping a couple and I'm selling the rest of those. But this will be the first of several pops that I do, getting these patterns out to you if you want to do them too. And just if you end up buying them, just please hold if you're not sure how to transfer it safely, because I will do a video on transferring a pattern safely from the original burlap, which in these cases, none of them have any damage. But for me, I would still transfer it onto a different backing just to be sure, because they are super old. Many or most of the patterns that I'm putting up at 6 p.m. tonight, and again, if you are a Patreon member, you'll get the link at 6. And I'll wait a day or two to hear back from Patreon members if which ones that you want, and then I will make them generally available. I have to reward Patreon members, and I have been very bad at recording videos later because of time constraints. So this is one way that I can say thank you so much for your support on Patreon. But these are mostly patterns from, I would say, the 50s, 60s. So these are quite vintage. And I do want to show how you can safely, without getting ink and stuff on the original pattern, transfer them onto another backing where they'd be a bit more permanent. And then you can save that original backing, and you can, frame it or put it over stretchers and put it on the wall as part of our history, right? I wish I could keep all of them, but we're talking about hundreds. So at a certain point, I have to sort of ask myself, am I being a pig? Or am I being a steward, right? And I'm not being a steward if I'm hoarding everything and I'm not like making it available to other people who also want to be stewards. So I have to draw the line somewhere with myself. That's always a hard line to draw. And it's always in the sand. But that's coming at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You will get the link to that. And for those of you who get that and are shopping at 6:01, just send me an email with what number you want, and literally the chronology of the order I get them in is how it's going to work. I can't do no Cats Gallery. It's fine to do it today as long as it's before 6. It'll go out with the rest of the Patreon. Patreon is like a group message for me, so as long as it's 5:45, it will be all right. And there will be others in the future, of course, but then all the other benefits that go with it. I won't start that because I feel like I'm begging for money, and I hate that. But that's happening today. And then those that don't get picked up by the Patreon group, I will certainly offer those too, and I will offer more, but I just can't do that auction thing again, because if you participated in that, you could see it was very, very stressful. People were bidding out of line, which is fine, because I know it's like the pressure is so intense to get a pattern, right? When you want something vintage and you don't really care what it is, you just want one so you can work on something. And many of these patterns, even though Cushing owns the McGown patterns, it's not all of them. So many of the ones that are up tonight, if not all, are not ones that are in their catalog. So I know that the pressure is crazy, but it makes it so hard to follow the auction for myself when I'm trying to run it and talk and look and hold, when things are all popping up in my face, and then I feel awful if I got somebody out of turn. It just ain't worth it. I've got enough health problems due to stress right now. On a happier note, did you see, if you were in the Facebook group, we were talking about the Rittermere patterns. We've been talking about them. This is the last day of Rittermere, and I've got a great idea for Friday night cocktail night. But do you remember, I'm not going to pull it up because it'll be too hard, but do you remember I showed this pattern? And I said, this is certainly one of my holy grails, right? Passing Elms came and went, and I missed that because I'm not in that Facebook group anymore. I do not like the tone of it, and I just can't. I just can't. So I took myself out of it, which means I missed great things like Passing Elms. But this is another holy grail, right, that I pointed out, Rose Window, that I truly love. Well, I found it. I found it in my crazy stash. So I pulled that, and I thought, yes, I'm not doing it now, but maybe I can do it at Christmas time because it has that kind of Christmas window stained glass look. I've been enjoying these Rittermere patterns immensely. Before I forget, let me tell you another piece of great news. That Bed Rugs exhibit, we have the group price on that group tour that's happening on April 22nd in Old Lyme, Connecticut. Don't get a tick, right? It's tick season already. That's where Lyme disease comes from. I'm half joking, right? You won't get a tick, but I'm being careful already because it's warm. Bed quilt and bed rug exhibit at the Florence Griswold Museum, which is one of my favorites. And I will send out something special on the history of that museum, and something special to those of you that have already got tickets. And with that particular museum, they are so well staffed that I remember at one time years ago, I offered to volunteer, and they had a wait list. This was years ago, for volunteers that was like 50 something people long. Like, that's how many people want to help out there, because the atmosphere is so positive and it's so inspiring and nurturing to be in such a creative and physically beautiful place with the Lieutenant River running through the backyard. It's just gorgeous. What a wonderful place to host the Bed Rugs exhibit. And of course, they're showing us their one hooked rug that's original to the house. Because that's not really the style of the house, right? It was very painterly and very serious, and they wouldn't have textiles down on the floor with a bunch of crazy, literally crazy painters renting the rooms out. But we will see that rug, and I cannot wait to see it. We'll have a great day that day, and that is, we are heading well toward the 30 mark on that, but they are perfectly able to accommodate us, so don't worry about that. They said if it way oversells, and I think 40 is considered sold out. But if it way oversells, they'll put some other people on, and they're putting us in shifts anyway, so we're not all COVID breathing on each other, even though, things are a bit better. But I also wanted to tell you that I made a deal yesterday with, I'll put this up later today, with, if you are anywhere near Boston and Cape Ann, this is another one that you cannot miss. This is what I was trying to plan in March of 2020, right? That magical date. Beauport and Cogswell Grant. I've been working with Kristen there, who's the new director, and we are going to go we finally have a date. It took this long since COVID, because they are very COVID wary. Massachusetts has different rules than Connecticut. Not that Connecticut is lax by any means, but the cases are way down. We are all on a different timeline, as you know. So we planned an event for, if you're anywhere near that area, if you can move the earth to get there, if you can crawl across the terrain, digging your fingernails into the ground to bring you closer to Ipswich and Guildford, then this event is going to be, You know, wait a minute, that's not it. Wait a minute. Why does Gmail always give you things out of order? Have you noticed that? For the amount of technology there is, they know my credit card on every site when I just dial the first number in, and yet it's showing me emails from, 3 years ago. So we planned this for July 14th. We're going to be at Cogswell Grant. Remember that, Mom? These two houses, they're both on Cape Ann. They're about 15 minutes drive from each other. One is in Ipswich, one is in Gloucester, famous for the Perfect Storm movie and real life tragedy. Beautiful part of the country. We're going to meet at Cogswell Grant, and we'll figure this out together, right? We'll figure this out together. But the tour will start at 1:30 to 3, so an hour and a half. They have dozens of 19th century hooked rugs at Cogswell Grant. Some it's a collection of folk art that one family was amassing over decades, over a lifetime. It's all primitive stuff, but their hooked rugs and their folky stuff is over the top, second to none. So that's 1:30 to 3, and their special emphasis on showing us the rugs and talking about the rugs, right up our alley. And then we get a break, half an hour, to travel over to Beauport, which is in Gloucester, and that is also called the Sleeper McCann House, and that was owned by Henry Sleeper. Henry Sleeper, I think so. He was like a Hollywood set designer, right, in the early 20th century. One of the first outwardly gay men in part of an art community there. Wonderful history there too. A real trailblazer and something to be proud of. He collected collections from glass to furniture to hooked rugs, and again, dozens of hooked rugs that are old. These are not commercial patterns. These are old. So between these two houses, your head is going to be spinning, and we will decide before the time comes, because that's way off in July, right? What did I say? July 14, Thursday, July 14. We'll make a plan before then to meet somewhere like a clam shack or a lobster shanty where we can sit and have a drink or a coffee, have a little bit of seafood, and get ready to go to those two houses and drink in the inspiration. And for those of you that can't be there, I will document it really well for all of us, but it'll be great to see you. Oh, Paula, good to see you, sunny California. I'm in need of a delicious new pattern. Oh, I know that feeling. It's such a good place to be. Never too late. That's right, Linda. So we have a lot coming up, and I'm super excited. I'm super excited to be able to get together after a hard couple of years, right? So let's see where we are. We were talking about the Rittermere patterns, and I hope you caught the previous episodes, because looking at these books that Lisa sent has been like life-changing and earth-changing. It really has. Looking at these modern rug hooking designs, this is modern that does not parallel the sort of trends in modern, right? These patterns are going from like late 50s, 60s, early 70s, and they are not running parallel in general, with the exception of maybe the cleft with the cat's head on top, cool cats. They are not really running in direct relationship to the sort of fine art or decorative art look for these periods. That's what makes these patterns so crazy, is that it's like they came out of nowhere, and each one is special and distinct and unique and super inspiring. So let's see where we left off. I'm going to go back into our window. Oh, I guess we left off on Ghana. Well, that's helpful. I forgot to close it. So we looked at this one last, right? This is the last one we saw on our last day of looking, which was Monday. So let me come back to where this would be. And just to recap, let me come back over here and open that page. I'm just getting back to the same place, Ghana. Yeah, we looked at the composition of this. This is 33 by 44, very interesting and unusual wall hanging, awarded first prize by the Canadian Handicraft Guild in 1958. Canadians, does the Canadian Handicraft Guild still exist? And I wonder if they do, assuming they do and hoping they do, does the scope of their sort of consideration still include textiles and hooked rugs? I'm wondering. Because I'm wondering historically what they have documented that might be interesting to us, because, okay, this one in 1958, but what one in 1956 and 57 and 59? I'd be very curious to know. So that was Ghana, and we're still looking at the Rittermere patterns that are considered by Rittermere to be, quote, some unusual designs. And remember that these Rittermere patterns are not just coming from, unlike, I'm going to say it, patterns in the U.S., pattern design is really sticking with motifs that are shore sellers, right? We are still in this period, 60s, 70s, seeing a lot of florals and medallions, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we're not seeing a lot of anything else. We're seeing some of everything else, but we're not seeing a lot of everything else. The Rittermere catalog is mostly not that, and mostly other things. All different areas of consideration, from zodiac to unusual designs, to ethnic designs, to religious designs, including florals and what we would call traditional motifs. I'll show you some more, I'll show you some more now, but a lot of geometric patterns, as we know, and a lot of those patterns that lean toward the mid-century modern look, like the Autumn in New York and New York windows, these very abstract graphic geometrics, very, very, very different. Something to be proud of, Canadians. This is like, this rug hooking heritage between this and Blue Nose, this is unbelievably great. Dissolved in 1974. Oh, Sandra, I'm so frustrated to hear that. But it would be worth doing a little bit of history, right? And checking, what the scope of the work was. What I would be interested in what their winners were and what their entries were right through those years. I'm going to have to do some research in that area, because that would be fun to document, and that would be fun to know whether we're talking about hooked rugs or not. I would just like to know what was included in that handcraft Canadian Handcraft Guild. Fern from New Brunswick. I am new to all of this, but finding it so interesting. Well, you know what? You jumped in a good place, because we have been talking about Canada for a while, and I'm nowhere near done talking about Canada, because it's just different design, isn't it? And I have to wonder, and it is a bit of a detour, and it is completely subjective, but I have to wonder if the reason Canadian design is so much more, pulls from so many more places than American design, is because it's a bit more sort of international, right? I mean, there exists, of course, the two cultures, the Canadian culture, or the three, like the native culture, the Canadian culture, the French culture. It's very different, because it's a hugely wide country, right, from place to place, just like the U.S. But in the U.S., we have historically been very U.S.-centric, right? As someone who was born not in the U.S., grew up here, and then lived abroad for many of the years I was a grown-up, which I'm not really still. But I would say that we are very U.S.-centric, and I am the most patriotic person in the world. But still, it is an odd thing to me that we don't look at other cultures as much. We are now, with all of these new and hip and liberal movements, right? But we weren't for many decades. But in Canada, you were. And it is just interesting to me that some of these patterns, like Ghana, that we just saw, would have been popular, or would have been bought at all, that there even would have been a market for that, or the idea to put out like a bare-breasted woman from Africa as a rug hooking pattern in the 1960s. It's a bit unexpected, right? But I love that it's there. I love that it exists, and I wonder if the sort of social differences between the US and Canada is what made it possible in Canada for people to be looking for, acquiring, and buying just different things. And I also wonder, on just brainstorming and being stupid, I wonder, on like a social history note point of view, I know you had big department stores in Canada too. Remind me the name of the big one. Come on, what was the really big one that's not open anymore? Oh, I have books on it. It'll come to me. You'll say it before it comes to me. Oh, Fern's getting some welcomes. Good. But I think American culture was very driven by being told what you would buy. And I think Canadian culture less so. I think it seems to me, as an outsider, to revolve more around geography and regionally what's popular and what's happening. Whereas in the US, we have a history since the First World War of putting things in store windows, and we tell you what you want to buy next, and you look at that window and you go, I got to buy it. And I'm the same. I still do it. I still do it at the mall. It's an easy way to shop. It's a brainless way to shop. But I think it is different in Canada. I just think the mindset is different, and historically, selling has been different and marketing has been different. And I think that paved the way, or at least left an opening for these very at least unusual, sometimes wacky designs to have hit the market at all. And I think this is why it's Eaton's. Thank you. Of course it's Eaton's. Of course it. I have the history of Eaton's, and it is a beautiful oversized coffee book. Sears too, also Sears. And Sears was such a good one, wasn't it? That's, there is a new book that History Press just put out on the history of the Sears, I think it's the Sears catalog. But I love the history of Sears because every time I used to go to Martha's Vineyard, which I haven't lately with my tour groups, I would look at that little collection of, looks like 324, I think, something like that, miniature gingerbread houses, Victorian, that were mostly pre-made from Sears catalog and came over to the island on a boat. Can you imagine picking out a small gingerbread cottage? They were 2 floors, but it was like one big room upstairs, just for a few months in the summer when you would go to this religious revival meeting in Oak Bluffs, right? It was like all faiths were welcome, but I think it was congregational campground. But anyway, wouldn't that be amazing, flipping through a catalog and going, I like that one with the window that's like this on top and a little porch with a little fretwork, and they all have different fretwork. There's a lot to be said for those old department stores and those old catalogs. I could talk about that for hours, but let's not be naughty. So this is an unusual pattern. This is an enormous pattern, and it's called paperweight. And it has the look a little bit of a mandala, right? But that's because now we talk about mandalas all the time, probably too much. This is a paperweight, and it does look just like, what is it called, Millefiori type paperweight. When you go into an antique store, maybe you're lucky enough to have one. This is one of the things that Henry collected at the Sleeper McCann house, right, that we're visiting in July. Paperweights, all kinds of glass, but beautiful paperweights. And you know, when you find one of these, sometimes you pick it up and you just get lost in it. It's like a universe of its own. So colorful, so tactile, right? Holding a glass globe with like a story inside of it. I think it is an amazing idea to use a paperweight as an idea for a rug hooking design. And this is 38 inches. That's really big. So this would be like a beautiful Victorian glass paperweight. Now, just an idea, putting it out there like all of our crazy ideas. Do you have a collection of paperweights? Do you have a special paperweight that's been passed down in your family? Is there a paperweight at the thrift store right now with your name on it? Because these paperweights came in all different colors and designs, and you could easily take a picture of it, put a piece of tracing paper over your picture or film, and color it, or with colored pencils, color plan it, blow it up really big, and hook that sucker. That would be such a beautiful design. Because remember how some of the paperweights in this era were the end, they were called the end of the day, weren't they? The glass that the people working in the, I'm going to say mostly women working in the factories, and at the end of the day, from their canes of Millefiori, from like their little Italian canes, right? They would have leftover at the end of the day and just chop it into big pieces that look like English candy, and just put it into a clear globe, right? Sometimes a colored globe, but usually clear. And then you get all these little pieces that look like crazy pieces of candy that don't have any color relationship or pattern into a glob. That would also make a beautiful rug hooking pattern. But I mean, a huge thank you to Rittermere yet again for coming up with a design that is so unexpected. And if you know of another design that's of a paperweight, I would love to know it, because I would love to compare the two. Just academic satisfaction of knowing what another one would look like, because I think this one is spectacular. This is a neat one called Canberra. Now, Rittermere doesn't do a lot with welcome mat sizes at all. They do a lot of small oval mats, but they don't do a lot of half moons at all. So this in itself is something of an anomaly. There's probably 2 or 3 in the whole catalog. But Canberra, half circle, modern treatment of leaf design. So interesting, 22 by 54. You know, looking at this one, this really says to me, hey, Susie, this one really says to me, they are trying to do something different and a little bit more artistic than a straight on welcome mat, right? They don't have bienvenue or welcome or anything in there like that, just a kind of wacky graphic, right? A very geometric graphic. And they also wanted to include something a bit organic. And this is really what Rittermere does best, is combining geometry and floral. This really is their thing. There's so many instances of it. I should really at some point put together a post of just instances of Rittermere combining like these two motifs, because it's very hard. And Pearl McGown does it very well too, with, for example, like a log cabin center and a lush border of ferns or flowers, right? She did it very well too. But Rittermere, I think, does it in an even more modern style. And they always like to say modern in their description, because it's an important selling point, isn't it? Not everybody feels like they have the confidence they want to shop modern because they want a modern household, right? And again, we're talking about decades ago. So they want to shop modern, but maybe they don't trust their own judgment of the definition of modern. Maybe the whole realm of home decorating and design isn't of interest, right? Is not interesting enough to invest time in. So it helps when a company tells you this is a modern design, because you can say, okay, well then it'll probably fit in my home. I don't trust myself to choose something modern, but if you're telling me that this is modern, that's great. I have a modern home and I'd like it to look even more modern. So something like this would have been super appealing for people. I have not seen this pattern in person ever. But then again, like we've said before, I think finding these Rittermere patterns is going to be much easier in Canada than it is in the US. We occasionally get them, but it is a super rarity to find them. This is beautiful. It's very different. It doesn't sit perfectly well with me because, hey, Tad, New York's chilly Hudson Valley, but still so pretty, even when it's chilly and freezing and snowy, which thank God it's not. This one, it just sits in a weird way with me because the geometry of the lines, you can see how they've created gaps, right, with both sequences of lines. And it's like I'm a bit OCD, and you probably already figured that out, but my eye wants to push up the horizontal bars to meet the top of the tall bar that's standing and add one bar underneath. And there's a gap in between the two. And I know that is the nature of MCM design, is having things be a little off symmetrical, right? Not completely in tandem with each other. But it's an odd design. It's still a lovely design, lots of possibilities, very different. This is a quite bare design, B-A-R-E, but very different. And this is another beauty. This is one of their masterpieces again. Seagulls, 30 by 48, modern seascape with waves and seabirds in flight. Oh, this is really good. And again, there's some weirdness going on, but I love it. I love the height of the wave. I love that it sort of, depending on how you're reading it, ascends. If you're reading from left to right, like it's a book, you're looking from low to high. Hey, Barbara, good to see you. And I love the very Japanese style of those waves, right? They're coming to like a very Japanese sort of woodcut curl in the center of each. Really pretty. Isn't it funny that they chose, I'm not being like ironic, but 4 seagulls? Because really the golden rule of design is to not do things in even numbers. So they've got the waves at 3, but they've got the birds at 4. And again, it's another one of these like just slightly uncomfortable things design-wise. I'd almost rather see one of the birds go and one of the birds in the sky move over just a little bit. I like it too, Doreen. I'm not picking on it at all because there are quite a few good things going on. I find that top right-hand bird a little bit confusing. There's more of his body showing. There's more lines in him than there are in the other 3. The other 3 look more like dove of peace kind of birds, just very, very silhouette-y birds. And that 4th one is kind of the odd man out. Maybe that adds interest. He's kind of soaring above the others. But I like the possibilities for patterning in this. Terry, good to see you. Really good to see you. I've been working on my thing. I hope you have too. I finished off my rabbits from the other night. I love that there's the idea of patterning in the, oh, hi, Susan, in the wave, right? So I don't know that you would actually put in tiny little circles if you were rug hooking. You might not. If you were punching, maybe you would. Be a lot easier to do in yarn, right, Terry, than in strips. But I like that they showed you patterning because I think at least that's giving you the idea that they're suggesting that you do something with a pattern in the wave, whether it be using wool that is spot dyed or mottled or patterned like a twill or a tweed or something like that, herringbone. But I like the idea of anchoring that bottom wave with something that has a bit of interest in it. And then you really do need 2 birds that are very easy to look at, right, up against it, because we're assuming that they're going to be seagull colored like a white or a light gray kind of a color. Interesting pattern, very different. And again, just as with everything that we've seen in Rittermere, if you think back to the Persian patterns that we've looked at, they do overlapping in an unusual way. So, for example, the bottom right-hand bird, I just love the shape of him. I'd expect to see him more at the top because of the position he's in, but he is mimicking the bird on the top left, right? So they're kind of mirror images of each other, which is smart. And then the bottom left-hand bird is more similar to the top right, but there is a change of pose, right? Because instead of seeing the top side of the bird, you're seeing the underside of the bird. Different, unusual. I'm just walking through it in terms of like imagining what the designer was thinking, but look at the way the birds are overlapping the edge of the wave, right? That's where the overlap comes in. And Rittermere does stuff with overlap that we don't see other companies doing. Most companies with designs that have potential to be as busy as this one might be, right? I know that that's an open sky, but depending on how you hook it, might not be an open sky. You might have a sunrise or a sunset going back there. Rittermere still dares to do a lot of overlapping, and other companies just don't. They're trying to keep everything very distinct and separated for the eye. And that is more in keeping with the aesthetic of traditional rug hooking, primitive rug hooking. So this is in itself more artistic just because of the way the lines are drawn. It's a very different composition. Karen says, even if it was part of a fifth bird on the edge, even if there was a part of it. You know, that is so true. Karen, I love that. Karen, you are so good at design. And I don't just mean the gypsy that you know I'm in love with. I know I'm not supposed to say gypsy. But, you know, you're getting so good and so smart at this. It would be a great device to kind of even drop that bird on the top left and do a slightly larger wing of a bird as if he was just flown over your head coming in from the top. Is the bottom part sand? Oh my gosh. You are probably right. The bottom part is probably sand. It's probably a God's eye view and not, see, I'm looking at it like it's a Japanese woodcut. I think you're right. I think it's a God's eye view. I mean, it's not literal, is it? Because then the birds are in the wrong position. But you're right. They look like they could be coming down to the shore. That makes a lot more sense. Ooh, and that makes it a bit better because then we could have a lot of business happening in the top with blue waves and change going down to the waves. And in the bottom, all of that sand. Oh, isn't that interesting? And you know, I'm not really one for applique personally on rug hooking pieces. But if I were going to do that, I would really be thinking about attaching some little shells and things to the bottom here. Very interesting. And Karen, I do love the idea of just a wing overlapping just a little bit. And you know what that reminds me of? At the Spy Museum in Washington, D.C., I don't know if the exhibit is still there. It was years ago when I used to work for Smithsonian, and I I brought teachers through on tours and taught them how to teach, like the history that we're going through, but I also brought kids sometimes through. As you can imagine, kids in D.C. was not the best combo. But we went to the Spy Museum every week, and one of the exhibits they had that I thought was so unforgettable was an exhibit of photography that pigeons took during World War II, right? I've probably mentioned this before, but it was unbelievably interesting because it was when they were experimenting with strapping like a tiny camera on a homing pigeon, and the pigeons would fly over bases and over sites that obviously were not available to see or to look at, and record film and snapshots, not like moving film, and then bring it back, and then they would look at the film and they'd go, that's the building that we want to target. It's kind of ironic nowadays, right? But anyway, these photographs are just unbelievably brilliant and amazing because not only are you getting that God's eye view, bird's eye view from the sky down of all of these German cities and places and buildings, but in every photo, you see the little hands of the pigeon coming in from the frame at different angles. Always. There's none that don't have it because he's flapping like constantly, right? So, I mean, it's just unbelievable. You see the little edges of the wings, and then you see the thing that he doesn't even know he's taking a photograph of. They were so interesting and moving, and it made a really permanent mark in my head about design and composition. You know, talking so often as we do about that God's eye view from the sky looking down. Karen, you're smart. You are on today, man. Because I think you're right. I think that is a God's eye view. It reminded me of those little feathers like this. And it is something that you could do with this design too, is just bring a little more wing action into the periphery so that there's something else going on other than the number 4. But regardless, I absolutely love the way that this looks. I think it's a great composition. I'm going to move on. We've been spending too much crazy time there, right? I love that one though. And speaking of crazy, boop, 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 this is called Ring-a-Ling. Circus motif. And this is just what we were talking about last week, wasn't it? When we were talking about defunct amusement parks and folk art, carnivals, painters of banners and boards, and everything to do with the folk art of the 20th century that relates to the circus, the carnival, the park, all of those things that are quickly disappearing from our world. Ringling fits right in with that. I mean, a very, very strange clown composition. Cheerful. You know, this is under unusual designs, not children's designs. But I love this design. It's got a lot happening. 21 by 33, modern design of 3 circus clowns to decorate, okay, a child's room. But it is under the category of unusual designs. And yeah, it's got a bit of the Siamese twin thing going on. But you know what else it has going on that really caught my eye is that top border, right? That Art Deco border. Because when we were talking about the whole folk art carnival thing and those lost, you know, the lost arts of the carnival, we looked at this photograph that I took from Rye Playland, right? These over on the right, those like this architectural sort of, I guess what would have at one point been like the Midway. It's now just a gardeny park and the rides are off to the side, but you see the shadow on the ground. That's exactly what they're using here. I'm going to flash back to Ringling, but that Art Deco motif, right, is like exactly the same. These triangular kinds of shapes that were so popular during that time. If you are trying to make a design that looks vintage, that has this kind of folky, childlike, vintage toy time play, think about doing a border. I think I'd go all around with the border on this, not just on the top for myself, because it looks like a theatrical valance right now, but it could go all the way around. And imagine the neon color options of this. Imagine this border going all the way around. And if you don't like the Siamese twins clowns, you can make the border in neons. You can make the background in dark black, and you could put something else in the center. You would have to think about that and choose. I'm not gonna kill that by giving an idea of mine, but think about what you would put in the center, because you set yourself up for a great sort of neon composition there. I like that. I really like that idea. I do have an idea. I'm going to sketch it and then I'll show it to you. So this is another one that goes along with what we've been talking about. This one is called Hyperion. Some of these have the oddest names, don't they? Hyperion. I'm trying to remember what that is a reference to. Can somebody Google that and refresh my memory? Hyperion. I'm crossing it with Iberian for like England. That's not going to work. Hyperion. Isn't that like I want to say not a Greek reference. I feel, we'll come back to it. I feel like it's a Greek reference, but I'm not getting there. Anyway, this is certainly a zodiac reference with one carousel horse, right? And a bunch of bubbles or balls coming down. This is another really interesting composition, open for conversation. It's very different. It's like a wedge of a platform instead of a circular platform. That in itself is a bit unexpected. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Only 7 zodiac signs. I'm guessing they're zodiacs. They're not zodiac signs. Well, no, they're not, are they? No, they're not. It's the sun, the star, the theatrical masquerade, comedy and tragedy, the moon, and another star. So no, they aren't zodiac at all. Interesting. It's getting more interesting. Again, I'm looking at this composition. I love how they've made one of the balls like the dark black color, right? And they've reversed it on the one that's closest to us. Interesting. It does look like there's a child standing by who is blowing bubbles, right? So neat. There's a little crown on top. He that walks on high, the God above. Thank you, Sandra. Perfect. Well, it's not making sense to me in this context, but I love it. The name Hyperion must have meant something to whoever at Rittermere designed this. I mean, maybe it was the name of a racehorse or something then. Is that possible? Maybe it's a reference to a specific carousel or a specific carver. That could be a to be continued, because that is a unexpected name, right? But this has a lot going for it. And again, this is a Rittermere, so look at where the overlaps are. There are some strange overlaps happening, like right under the canopy of the carousel. There's one bubble that's kind of sticking to it, right? You almost want to shake that one bubble free, composition-wise. There's always going to be something in these Rittermere patterns that if I were to do them, I think I would just change it just for my own problems, right? The touching is driving me crazy right now. But I mean, it's so interesting because it's part of their look and it's part of what they do. I'm trying to embrace it. Also, right in front of the horse, balancing on his knees, there is another bubble that's like it got stuck. And maybe that is, I think, a Greek god. Okay, it was striking me as like a Greek reference, but I was thinking that doesn't sound like a super Greek word. We got there. We'll get there in the end. I bet we'll get even further with that. You know, now that I look at it, I'm thinking if these are the kinds of bubbles that a child would blow, like at a carousel at a park, they would stick to things, wouldn't they? It's just a beautiful composition. What a cheerful composition. Imagine doing this for a special child in your life, and on the bottom, if you didn't want the tragedy and comedy and the masks and the moon, you could put the year with like initials, right, or something like that, or a special word, child's name. Another beautiful pattern. Really different. These are so different, aren't they? I mean, I wish we were actually together and we were just sitting and looking at them, and I would love to see these finished. Here's another one that just blows me away. This is one of my holy grails, not as much as Passing Elms, but nonetheless, I love this one. Let me find it in my book. I'm going through some pages of florals. Oh, I just saw one that I wish I included. I'll have to show you at the end. There it is. This one's just called Zodiac Rug Design, 37 by 45, complete with suggested color plans and instructions. So the thing that really strikes me about this one is that, you know, they've got angels, which obviously are associated to religion, and the zodiac, which don't always go together, right? They really don't go together. But in this composition, they do. They've also got the yin and the yang as the center of the sun. So they're pulling from a lot of different sources to make this design. I love this design. I mean, I'm seeing Penn Dutch type angels with this kind of Russian roulette wheel that looks like a menu at a Chinese restaurant with the animal zodiac on it, right? Unexpected. Actually, it's not the animal zodiac, is it? It's the straightforward zodiac. Let me see. We've got the symbols. Yeah, no, I see the Virgin Queen. Do you see Elizabeth is the Virgin Queen down at like 4 o'clock? That's unexpected. That's not usually the symbol that we see for Virgo. That is very cool. What's the symbol of the vase? What am I missing there? That would be my symbol, I think, January, February. Is that? No, Pisces is the next one. What's the one right before Pisces that's being represented as what looks like a water symbol, but with like a Greek vase? I'm not getting that reference at all. Interesting. You know what? Maybe Queen Elizabeth is not the. No, she is. So then, what is after the cow? What are? Oh, the twins, the Gemini, of course, of course. Help me out with that vase, though. That one remains a mystery to me. But as you can see, this is a beautifully drawn, very, very different. Even the scales at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock down below, really exotic looking scales, right? I mean, this is just a fantastic composition. It's so deco, too. Look at the symbol on the top and the bottom. Aquarius. Okay. Aquarius. So I guess it's just like a vessel to hold water. Thanks, Dave. You know, isn't it always fun when you see different symbols to represent the zodiac? Because we all get a bit, I think, oversaturated with zodiac references and icons. And these for me are quite different. And that makes them new again and interesting again. Because I get kind of blind to zodiac symbols. But these are really cool. Complete with angels. And if you notice, all the angels have different costumes on, with the exception of, no, they're paired, right? They're paired diagonally. 2 have borders with guitars, and 2 have kind of stripy sashes, go like long ways with little trumpets. Very nice, huh? Yin and the yang in the middle. Yeah, definitely the yin and the yang in the middle. Virgin in August, September. That's right, Heidi. So that's got to be Queen Elizabeth, the Virgin Queen, but I have never seen Queen Elizabeth represent any part of the zodiac. It's so cool that she is. It's so creative, which makes me think, would it be a fun exercise ever on one of those rainy days to create your own zodiac and to put different things in, right? I mean, who decided that there is definitively special symbols that are supposed to accompany the different signs? Paula says the scale is the only non-living design on the zodiac wheel for Libra. That is a great observation. You are, except for the vase, right? Except for the vase. But you're right, they have got a lot going on. That's interesting. My mom says, love zodiac signs. We got excited about them a ways back. And then life, oh, that's right. We did get excited about them. We were going to do a bunch of stuff with zodiac symbols, and life got busy. Yep, you're right. The kids have been keeping me busy. Dave says, confusing because Aquarius is the water bearer, but is considered to be an air sign. Interesting. The plot doth thicken here. There's a lot to be said for the zodiac. Does anybody have this? I just feel like hooking this so badly. And I don't know, do you know whether the Rittermere patterns, I should know because I know we've had this conversation before, are they available? Is anybody selling the Rittermere patterns? I feel like there was a Canadian company that was, and I would love to know who they are because I would love to hook some of these that I can't find. Um, I would love to hook them, right? I would love to have the original vintage pattern to hang up, but I would love to hook some of them too. And this is one of them. This just strikes me as such a contradiction. There is a lot of confusion in this design, but again, that's what Rittermere does. And if we love Rittermere and we love studying their designs and talking about what makes sense and what's an anomaly, then we have to love designs like this, right? Paula, you're a Libra. Yep, interesting. And I have to say, I love the scales there. I love the scales. I'm a Pisces. I love the three fish like that. Um, they're very good symbols. Really interesting. I'll move on, but you know you can watch back and look at it more closely if you want to study it a bit more. It was a good study in composition. Back to something traditional, but you know what? This isn't entirely traditional. This one comes under the category in the Rittermere catalog called Some Projects for the Expert. They're not available yet, Susan. Susan, can you let us know if you find that they are? Um, because this is another entire catalog of work that is like, I just want it to be available. I want to hook some, and I want to know that people who are in love with specific patterns are having their dream and hooking those patterns. We'll have to stay on top of this one. But, you know, how many baskets do we see in rug hooking? How many baskets of flowers do we get? Okay, or I should say they're not available for sale at this point in time. Okay. Okay, I'd love to know more about that. Yeah, I feel like these are super important designs. I'm so happy that the Blue Nose Garrett designs are available again. That is a huge weight off my mind, but I would love to know that the Rittermere are also available, and they should rightfully be with a Canadian company. Someone who can put out all of the designs, or at least make all of the designs on command, because this should be part of life again. This offering should be part of life. Paula says, but Aquarius is Aquarian is water, so it could be considered living. Interesting, that's true. The living sea, that's another interpretation. I love these academic side conversations. I have to participate. Good point. So, basket. This is not your typical rug hooking basket, is it? This is Edenvale, Edenvale, one word, 20 by 29. No further info on this one. What I love about this basket, this is considered for an expert project, is the angle, right? We're not seeing the basket head on, and it is great to see this kind of a basket with a sideways view, right? You see the weaving going up to the handle. It is great to see one of these in primitive hooking, but seeing a shallow basket like this that is just overfilled with so many different kinds of flowers and at an angle, and you're looking at it a little bit from above, you're looking a little bit down into it, and it's angled out. Doesn't this make a gorgeous composition? Absolutely gorgeous. I know that I would be putting something into those corners or some text into it somehow. I just love the lines. I love the opportunity to fill these flowers. And the pattern on the basket is going to be another beauty, right? Because you've got the woven pattern at the bottom, you've got the rope, you've got the ladder pattern headed up, and then you've got the pattern where the handle actually is, where your hand would hold. Interesting, interesting. This is just another fantastic Rittermere. What isn't a fantastic Rittermere, right? And another exciting pattern, right? Another great geometric that involves overlays. This one is called Ad Astra. Ad Astra. Ad Astra. Sandra, can you look this one up too? I feel like Ad Astra means like eye of God. Maybe I'm just superimposing the last conversation, but I'm getting thoroughly confused with these references. This piece is called, let me find it in our book of greatness, Ad Astra. Huh. I'm not finding it for some reason. There it is. Whoa. Okay, 30 by 66. A wild swirl of interlocking circles suggests the paths of planets in outer space. Ad Astra. Oh, I'm waiting on that one. That's going to get me. Following Trillium in the basket, our provincial flower of Ontario. Oh, Dave, that was a great one. So Trillium in that even Vale pattern right before. It's a protected plant. Oh, that's a great bit of trivia. Leave it to you, the tour guide, right, to give us that excellent piece of trivia. Interesting. Love it. It means spring. I didn't know that. Okay, great. Well, I love this name, Ad Astra, a wild swirl of interlocking planets, suggesting the paths of the planets in outer space. Well, this really is beautiful. And while it is a planetary composition, it does have that abstraction about it. It does have a lot of lines. It does have that mix, right? It's basically two sets of circles that overlap, but they're going in different directions, right? So you've got the one that has been patterned out. That's the easiest one to see. But then if you look from the bottom left up to the right top, you can see that there's another set of circles radiating in the opposite direction against it and creating petal shape interface, right, where they cross. So lots of color opportunities for shading or for making a piece of optical art that would blow anybody's mind, right? The amount of patterning and compartmentalizing, again, in this one is exquisite. This is a beautiful design. Can I show Passing Elms? Yes, Kelly, let me show Passing Elms. That was from the other day, but I think it's still in. Hold on one second. It's going to go black for a minute. Passing Elms popped up on Facebook, and it broke my heart because, you know what, it's not there. I'm going to show it to you in the book. Because it was already sold. So this can happen, and I'm super happy for the person that found it because it's a real treasure. Let me just hold up Passing Elms real quick as soon as I find it, and then we're going to move on because we're getting late as usual. My mouth just runs and runs. I do love that Ad Astra, though. I think that was so smart. Another really smart geometric. That's Passing Elms. Let me bring you into focus. Not wanting to get in focus, is it? There we go. Passing Elms. Kelly, isn't that something? And remember these red backgrounds? That's a wall they were photographing on. They don't have red backgrounds. It just ends at the border. Just love this piece so much. I love it so much. Oh, that was a bit of a heartbreak. Sandra says, to the stars through hardships. That was what I found the other day on Google. That's what I found. Isn't that a beautiful saying? To the stars through hardships. I mean, that blows my mind. Look at this piece, to the stars through hardships. That is so symbolic, isn't it? I mean, I think anybody can relate to that kind of quote. Oh, wow, we have so many left to do. All right, let's keep going. Let's jet. Ad Astra. Now let's look at some of the more traditional. This does have the stained glass look. It's almost like a triptych that's not done vertically but horizontally. So there are a bunch of religious patterns that were put out by Rittermere that I think are absolutely beautiful. However you feel about religion, I think this pattern is unbelievably important and lovely. It's just called Nativity, based on the design for the Canadian Christmas stamp. Canadians, do you remember this stamp coming out, or have you seen the images? It's like quite a famous image. This is such a beautiful design. This blows my mind. This is on my list, absolutely. What is the animal down at the bottom? Is that a little lamb or something? A tiny, tiny little lamb? It must be like Lamb of God, right? That is such a beautiful. This bears a lot in common with Passing Elms when you think about it, right? All that square break up in the back, a little bit of klimt happening on the sides, right? It has that bit of a stained glass feel, but modern stained glass. Oh, you bought it, Karen. Well, Karen, that makes me feel fine then, because I know that you love it and that you'll appreciate it. I didn't want a stranger to buy it. Isn't that awful? But we've been talking about it. Good for you. I'm super jealous, but I'm very happy that you have it. It's in good hands, right? So Nativity is just one of their many religious designs, Christmas type designs that are exquisitely moving. And this one, these are the two angels from Hyperion, without a doubt, right? This is just called Madrigal. This was a smaller one at 15 by 20. Some scroll shapes on the corners. Do you see how the scrolls are kind of overlapping what looks like a stained glass or like a leaded window? Absolutely beautiful. But these are the same two angels. So they are doing a little bit of recycling of patterns. It's the Christmas Dachshund, LOL. It's a Christmas Dachshund. Dachshund, like, it's a Christmas Dachshund? Seriously? Oh, you're joking. Sandra, you're joking, right? There's not such a thing in Canada, is there? The Christmas Dachshund. Oh my God, it does. It's like half dachshund, half seal, water seal. How funny. Definitely looks like that. Oh man, Innisfree. Okay, so Innisfree, this is, well, I know there's a place in Ireland called Innisfree. This is another one of their beautiful organic samplers, certainly for the expert. This is under the category, all three of the ones I just showed you, Nativity, Madrigal, and Innisfree, are all under the category of special designs. Special, I'm not sure why, they're all very special. This one would fit into some of the earlier designs we see, like a broken off stump of a tree, a lot of fungi, a lot of sort of abstraction, leaves right in the air. This is a great sampler idea, sampler design. Again, the prompts that Rittermere gives us in terms of light versus dark, they're so interesting, right? Because think of the ways that you could break this down color-wise. It's not the way they broke it down for me. Wouldn't you have chosen your darks to go like under the caps of the mushrooms? And they never do what is expected, and that is one of, you're just kidding, Sandra. Thank God, I thought I missed a really big cultural reference there. Christmas dachshund. I love this pattern too. This is a bit fussy for me, and I'm not that good, but this is, I think, a beautiful pattern, and I like the shape of it. You rarely get these long, skinny patterns. This would be great over a door in an odd shape. This pattern is called Upper Canada, right? Da, da, da. This is under the category of more interesting designs. There's lots of them. So Upper Canada is 28 by 48. This interesting design uses simple ideas which were used effectively in the rugs of our earlier settlers. Circle patterns interlock to frame pictures of church, barn, ship, etc. Interesting. Now this is really meaningful for Canadians, I would think, right? Knowing that these are symbols pulled from the earliest rugs. I think this is beautiful. What's that, an orchid in the top row? I see the kind of totem thing. I see a teepee. I see a plant that I don't recognize. I see a totem, what looks like an orchid, a canoe, a maple leaf, a shamrock. That middle flower, I mean, it looks like a rose. It looks like a Tudor rose. And then we've got a thistle, another Canada leaf. That's got to be a special kind of a boat, right? What kind of boat is that? A skiff or something? Oh, and then we've got one of the designs we see a lot for Grenfell. That's the fish design, the church motif. See, some of these I don't recognize. The tree, that's a great shapy tree, but that must have a special significance. And then the barn with the silo. Interesting. Man, if I were a Canadian, you can send your own picture to Canada Post. Subject to approval, they will make it into a stamp for you. You must be joking. For anybody, they'll do that, Dave? Trillium. Oh, that second flower is trillium. Or is the center one? Probably the second one, right? Because trillium, three. Okay, has got to be the three-leaf flower, I would think. Nice. Got some gardeners. We always have some gardeners, right? Interesting. Dave, can anybody make their own stamp? Do you have to pay them a fortune to make your own stamp? I mean, how cool would that be? Oh, I got to learn more about that. All right, let's move on. We are late as usual, and I want to do a completely different episode on Friday. Chiaroscuro. This is a really, really different pattern. Chiaroscuro. Chiaroscuro. 30 by 30 square design, a modern freeform design suggestive of cloud shadows. Now, suggestive of Matisse too. Now, hey, this is so good. This is so good. Now, if you are sitting on that rainy day and you've got your paper out, printer paper and a pair of regular scissors, right? Don't use your fabric scissors. Cut some Matisse designs and overlap them, right? Oh, just put them over each other. Put a square down. Overlap your Matisse. Not too many times you end up with a pig's breakfast, but just a couple of times like they've done here, and see where your overlap falls, right? And you've basically got this design. How fun, how fun, how simple, how fun. Trillium upper left. Okay, so that makes absolutely no sense to me. I've got to check this out. Trillium is, okay, so it's the one with the 3 though, right? It's got to be the one with the 3. I'm just going on the base of the word trillium. I could be terribly wrong. Chiaroscuro is a really cool design, and it is very Matisse to me. But what a great design for playing with color. And if you notice, it's broken into 4 quadrants too. So besides playing with I wouldn't mess with the center colors because it would become very messy. But I would mess with the background, right? Or at least the 3rd layer, because there's 3 designs layered on top of each other here. Is it 3 or is it 2? No, it's 3. Because one is going, no, it's 2. One is going vertical and one is going horizontal, and the black shape is where they fall together. You could do a design like this and it would come out different every time. You could do it all afternoon, and you could do a different design in the 4 corners in the background. You could also make 9, right? You could do a Warhol background. Could be very, very cool. Thanks, Karen. Good. I'm glad to know at least the 2 words of Latin I know come in handy sometimes, right? Now, this is the one I used for the thumbnail, and I colored it with my paint.net, just fooling around for a minute while I was having breakfast. This is Lake of the Woods. I don't get this reference, but I love it. 32 by 44, this completely abstract design captures the feeling of the Canadian Northland. How cool is this? This is another one. It's so squiggled out. It's so abstract. I think this again is like another one, Karen, of these God eye views, right? Looking down at the land. It is so shapy. It is so organic. It is so cool. And what a great opportunity to do a nice, large, abstract rug. You could hook something like this very wide, even selvage wide, and be done with it fairly quickly and have a beautiful rug size room, right? I could see a one-sided rug like this being fantastic, like in front of a fireplace, that kind of thing. Dave says, I'm serious about the stamps. There are restrictions and rules. Friends of mine did it for Christmas cards. However, stamps would be for Canadian postage only. Well, I would never use them. I would frame them. That's a great idea. I'm going to be thinking about that. That would be a really fun thing, wouldn't it? Oh man, maybe we can work out some kind of an exchange where we get different stamps. Oh my gosh, we're going to have to evolve this idea. What if we did this in time for the holidays next year, and we all put in like different, maybe I could organize this, right? Make it easy on everybody. Or the girl who works for me, maybe she could do this. Maybe we could put our rug hooking designs onto stamps, and maybe we could trade them, and maybe I could do a print-on-demand stamp book where we have different states and different people who are participating, and you'd have to fill in all of the stamps. Wouldn't that be fun? Oh my gosh, this could be something where we send each other Christmas cards and whatever, or forwarding. We'll have to think about how to make this work. That could be a really fun thing to do at Christmas, because then we would end up with a little stamp album of real stamps that we would put down like collector's stamps that would represent all of our friends in other places in different parts of the world. Maybe I could create like a poster thing, right, that we could put in a frame or something of like, we'll have to put the word world, because Heidi's over there in Bruges too. We have some buddies in England. We have Gail that logs on a lot from Australia. But we can maybe put places for the stamps to go, and we could try to collect all your stamps. We'll have to think about how to make that work. That could be a really fun friend exchange for Christmas. I like that. Lake of the Woods. We need to move on. I need to work. Really pretty design, right? Really different. Very abstract. Nippon. Now, I'm guessing this is a reference to like China ceramics, right? I don't know. Very Art Deco design. I think it is. Absolutely beautiful. A little bit of a playing card feel to it, but this is another one of these compartmentalized designs, except the corner, we have these almost like shield heraldry type designs on the 4 corners, and in the center diamond. It's like 2 ducks or 2 geese, right? So cool, that are pointing in opposite directions, but they are perfectly symmetrical. If you folded the paper in half, they'd be perfectly symmetrical, but on the diagonal, with like a little kind of canoe board shaped flower petal between them. So Rittermere, right? Overlapping a multiple of 2 with a shape behind it. This is so Rittermere. Yeah, my mind works in some strange ways, I'm telling you, but that actually is, I think, a great idea. That's a great friend project. I love this pattern nip, and if anybody finds this, that's one that I'm definitely looking for. For me, not so much this one. This is just so wild. Mandarin, this one is called 32 by 55. This is under more special designs that are considered difficult, right? These designs, including Nippon, are considered quite difficult. So for teachers, challenges for teachers, they say. This is beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful exotic design. Dragon, it depends on if you're a dragon person, right? This is the very Chinese dragon with a very sort of thin body, pulled out body, very serpentine. Beautiful graphic behind him. Oh, swans in the last one, Donna. You're probably right. They probably were swans. Let's just have a quick look back. I don't want to miss anything. You know, they could be swans. Absolutely. Absolutely. They're so oddly shaped. But that little eyeball is what's helping us, I guess, recognize them as a bird. I love this design. I just love this design. You know, I don't know what the status is with like using Rittermere or like, I mean, obviously I'm not going to put the patterns out right because I don't know the status. But I would love to do a challenge where, for example, we took the Nippon design and we all colored it in with colored pencils in a different way, or did it on our computer in a different way, and then showed the way we can do that. I don't know if even that is allowed, kind of a thing. But I would love to do that kind of experiment because whenever I look at these, I'm thinking, what would you out there be choosing for your colors? Because I already have an idea about cobalt blue and that border, but what would you choose? I would be so interested in knowing these Rittermeres are so different. And obviously I'm so in love with them. So we did Mandarin. That's very different. This one's called Ontario. Big surprise. So this must be the trillion at the top again, right? The trillion flower top and bottom. And then it looks like, I'm sorry, it's a bit cut off. Thistles on the bottom maybe, and then a beautiful little scene. I like the way this one's shaped out, not quite like an oval. This is a beautiful, beautiful scene. If I were from Ontario, I would be going nuts searching for this pattern. This is so quaint. That one I don't have a reference to. These were in a separate pamphlet. All the stuff that Lisa sent me, these were in a separate pamphlet. Let me see if I can just find it. Okay, this was 21 by 34. No other information. Just says Ontario 84. I don't know if that's a reference to 1884 or 1984, but they were done before. Oh, no, they were done in the 80s, right? That could be 84. Interesting. So that is Ontario. Let's keep going. And this one is one of my faves. Oh, this is the last one, actually. Grandma's Cottage. So another beautiful subject. This is another story. I love a story in a rug. Teddy would like Mandarin Mom. He would love that dragon. Absolutely. Grandma's Cottage. 19 by 24. No other information. Just beautiful. Very modern design. You see Grandma's wearing kind of a smock. She's got a bob, but looks more, the child looks a bit Sunbonnet Sue, but the grandma looks a little bit more contemporary to me. It's hard to tell what period this is supposed to be, but certainly this is a beautiful Canadian/English design, right? Little three-gabled cottage, so English looking. And then in the distance, a little country church, right? Looks like a little stone church off in the distance. And we've got a combination of a big flower sampler in the foreground that is intersecting that. You see that diagonal fence? It's not going straight across as you would expect. The fence is at a slight diagonal and the cottage is at a slight diagonal. And then look to the left-hand side. You see the garden wall with the arbor over it. That is at a slight diagonal. And what do you get as a result? You get that square. It's more like a sort of trapezoid in the middle, right? That's what Rittermere does. They shape things out in the most unexpected ways. Just let your eye look at the lines in this thing. It's crazy. It's all unexpected. It's absolutely beautiful. Brings you right into the story. And the story of the grandma and the little one walking toward the house isn't the whole story, or in my mind, even the big story, because they're kind of mixed up in that tangle of flowers, creeping flowers. But the story for me is that beautiful cottage in the distance, the church, right? Almost like a village scene. For me, it's more of a village scene than about grandma. But I guess they're going back to grandma's cottage. Maybe it's the sentiment that evokes. Absolutely beautiful designs. So I will never get enough of these. I didn't show this one, Sea Spray, and that is like the seagulls that we were looking at for a while, but this is done as the sampler. So that makes me think, right? And you were giving us some info on the sampler ideas. This is one where the background is not worked, right? You're hooking parts of it with specific stitches. And Rittermere had like this, I need to know more, and it's hard to find out. Collection of stitches that they considered like beginner stitchers and intermediate and expert/teacher stitches, but they would have you work a sampler and you'd only be working part of the composition, not the whole thing. And that is part of what they do too. That's part of their look, right? When you see things that are only partly finished, there's a very good chance that they're Rittermere. I'm never going to get enough of these patterns. I'm just going to be looking at them over and over again and waiting for more information about when they might become available. But in the meantime, help me think about something to do with those stamps. Let's come up with something, because this, I know it's miles away, and I know it was just the first day of spring this weekend, but I want to be thinking forward this year. I don't want to be caught again, like working with a big book project like this and not having any presence of mind. I want to be thinking forward, because this winter I definitely want to do a cookbook, like a spiral bound old time cookbook for us, with our rugs and our special family recipes, right? I definitely want to do that, but I also want to do something with these stamps. I think that those would be super fun projects for us to do. So help me evolve those ideas. If you have good ideas about those, help my brain get from point A to point B with figuring out a really cool way to make those things work. So we're sharing images, sharing our work, sharing loves, passing things in between each other that are physical things that we can look at with our hands, right? That'd be a very nice thing to do when we feel cozy again at the end of the year, so far away. But I'll do the planning as long as I can figure it out. Thumbs up, another hugely long video. I don't know why I don't do half hours anymore. But anyway, I will see you on Friday. I think on Friday I'm going to do, my idea is to do an unexpected, like 1980s edition, where I want to look at, I was in bed last night, I was with Joss, we did our nails, we did a little bit of crossword and word search, and I started looking, she fell asleep, thank God. I was putting thick yarn in between her toes like this, that's what makes her go to sleep between every toe, and she gets, it's so tickly and soft, she ends up going to sleep, and then I can quietly open my book and start looking for pages for 2 minutes before I fall asleep. And I was looking at a decorating book from the 1980s, and there were quite a few rugs in it. And I thought, ooh, this is such a moment in time. So my idea for tomorrow is to do a kind of, I don't even want to say vintage because the 80s were not that long ago, episode of 80s style designing rugs in the context of decoration and design. So it'll be part decorator, part looking at specific rug designs from the 1980s. That is the idea anyway. So I won't see you tomorrow. I hope you have a great day tomorrow. Be good and busy. And I will be with you on Friday for cocktail time at 7 p.m. In the meantime, you can reach me at ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com. There's a bunch of new things that are going up on the website. And reminding Patreon subscribers and supporters, always thank you very much. And you will get an email with a link from me at 6 o'clock with about, I think, 56 rug patterns that are all vintage, and many of them very rare, coming at you at 6, and it's first come first serve. It's never fair, right? Just like on eBay, it's never fair. I wish I could show you all in person and hold it up and we could vote, but this seems like a good way to do it, and there will be a lot more patterns in the future. So be looking out for that. And otherwise, maybe I will see you. No, I'll see you on Friday, and then I'll hopefully see you on Cape Cod for the Amish toothbrush this weekend. Have a great day tomorrow, everybody. Be thinking about that cookbook because I'm going to have to put that together at the end of the summer at least, right? Have a great day, everybody. I will see you.